at the end of the day, because you know what?
Yes.
They're not monkeys. You can't really potty train them too good, even with a diaper.
Oh, yeah, they definitely had a diaper on the guy, and they couldn't keep him in the costume. There's all sorts of, rules and regulations in Hollywood for shooting with animals and children and all that stuff. But I can't imagine someone writing that into the script, and then some production manager guy has to figure out how to actually pull it off without CGI back in those days and all that stuff.
Well, you know what? I hate to say it. I hate the Midget Association. I'm surprised they didn't get. I'm sorry, I'm going to get in trouble for that. I was going to say, I'm surprised they didn't get sued or boycotted.
Oh, and my brother was also working with one or two dwarfs that were famous Hollywood actors, actually, and they would be stuffed into little R2-D2 kind of robots and different kinds of things that just totally would fool the public in what was happening inside this costume, because obviously a normal sized person or even a small person would not be able to even fit in these things. So I think he told me he saw just a little bit about anything that happened in Hollywood from the inside as a costumer's angle.
Oh, wow. And did he design some of these really sexist outfits, too, that these women were wearing in the 80s and 70s and stuff like that? I watched another movie here, I think, last night. I mean, the lady looked like she was a bodybuilder, and, she's running a band of these, people, that were trying to take over the planet after the president died. It was real weird. That movie was made in 1983. That's the only thing I remember about that movie at the very end, the critics, the credits of the movie. It was that bad. Well,
listen, I want to hear more about Liz's book. And I want to hear some stories from her, because these are fascinating tales that she's able to tell us out here.
Now, do you still hold your police commission at all or anything like that? Or did you have to surrender that? I know some jurisdictions...
When I medically retired, I had to surrender it.
Okay, so you don't have to worry about Michael being arrested.
No, no, he's safe.
Okay,
I'll try to watch my tongue.
Okay. So ask her questions too. I mean, she is one cool person. I gotten to know her for the longest period of time. I mean. And I'm really intrigued that, about her first book. She sent me a copy. I can't wait to read it out. Is that the second copy or the second book you sent me on?
It's the second book that I'm sending you, yes.
Oh, boy, I can't wait to get it, because that gives me something to read. I'm tired of getting all these books on, it's not a day. I'm not joking. I get a book almost every day on Bigfoot from somebody who wants to be on the show. I got a whole big box full of books on Bigfoot. Well,
Bigfoot actually is in the second book quite a bit, but there's kind of two versions. It gets a little more in depth into what happened to the sheriff when she was attacked. So, there's that very aggressive one was responsible for her attack almost a year prior to her taking over as sheriff. But then there's this other one that keeps showing up that is more benign and almost following her.
Okay.
So there's kind of that.
Well, maybe the Bigfoot has a crush on her.
There's a reason he's doing it. There is an actual reason he's doing it. I don't want to give that part of it away, because that's kind of important.
But your books are full of like little creepy monsters and little slimy things, if I remember right. At least your first book was, from when we, talked about it in the past.
In the 5-book series, I have between 30 and 35 different creatures, entities, things that create some kind of paranormal activity in the 5-book series.
Oh, wow. Now, hey, Michael, she does have some paranormal things going on her property, and I thought I want to share it if she doesn't mind. One is her bedroom door opens and slams. That's one. Two, her refrigerator opens and closes, if I remember right, the door. And and then the one I find really intriguing, she was out in her on her property, and she noticed like this young kid in a hoodie walking towards her, on her property, and all of a sudden it vanishes, like it's now not there. And if you can explain a little bit to Mike on that one, that's the one I find really intriguing.
I've heard Gary talk about this story, and I'm totally fascinated, Liz, with this idea that, we always think about ghosts being historical figures or dressed in old clothing, that kind of. And here is a ghost dressed in a hoodie.
Well, it's not that it was dressed in a hoodie. I say it looked like it was in like a hoodie and cargo pants, because that's the first impression that I got from it, because I thought it was the neighbor kid coming up to get like a ball or something that my son had said for him to come up and get. And when I went to check and, see what the kid wanted, there was no one there. I had been feeding my horses and had seen this figure walk in the space between our house and our well house and out of sight. And there was no other way for him to get out except walk back the way he came in. And I kept looking, kept my eye on that area. And when I went to check, there was no sign of anyone being there. There were no footprints. There were no marks in the grass. There was absolutely nothing there.
Wow, was this apparition, some of them have been reported to just almost kind of glide, and you don't really see them walk or their feet or the legs even. Was this something that looked like a full-figured apparition to you?
It looked like someone walking. I thought it was the neighbor kid wearing black hoodie, black cargo pants, and walking through.
Wow, that's scary.
Well, I was thinking, remember two things, shape shifter could be one, not necessarily a ghost. I mean, or it came from another dimension, or maybe it was somebody, because I asked her at the time, like, who owned the property before she was there, because maybe, it could be a ghostly figure, or remember the Jeeper Creeper movies? Maybe it was one of those creatures disguising itself as a human. So she would have went up to him, maybe the thing would have opened up its mouth, which would have had great big fangs on it, and swallowed her or something.
Well, no, if it was Jeepers Creepers, it would have like stolen my eyes or something. We've got to get that right. Or would have stolen whatever part it needed.
Yeah, your skin and all that stuff. That'd be icky. But I find that kind of intriguing, though. You're sitting there and you're out of the corner of your eye, and you look and you see somebody coming towards you or coming that way, and then all of a sudden they're not there, and if I remember right, you even checked like for footprints, and wasn't it kind of wet or muddy or something? If I remember right, when we talked,
it had been raining, and there had been some yard work done where this person had walked through, and there was absolutely no sign of footprints. It was clay mud, so I mean there should have been footprints.
Yeah, and all your years in law enforcement too, that would have intrigued me. I mean, that there was something there. I mean, I had very short 2 years of law enforcement experience, but it would have really, got my mind going like, well, where's the footprints? Then I would start looking at the grass or whatever, if it's been mashed down from the shoes and all that stuff. I mean, for something that totally just vanished like that. Now, was this before you wrote your first book, or after, or in between, or what?
This was years before I wrote the books. I actually wrote the first book in September of 2016, and I finished the fifth book in the series in August of 2017.
Wow.
So a 5-book series in 11 months.
That is a lot. I mean, I know people I've had on the show. It took me, one guy, it took him a couple years to write a book on vampires. So, I mean, do you, when you're sleeping at night, are you thinking about a chapter you need to write or anything like that? Does it come to you in the middle of the night, or how's it come to you?
Sometimes it does. I write in a very strange way compared to most people. Most people sit down, they plan everything out, they have characters, they have everything laid out exactly the way they want it. And for me, I just make it up as I go along. I don't always know, even from chapter to chapter, what's going to happen next. And when there's a conversation, I type basically at the speed of a conversation. So, you know, if there's 12 pages of conversation, then it's going to be 12 pages of typing at conversation speed.
Interesting.
Liz, do you, as a writer, obviously you've gotten, at this point, you've found the voice that you use, you know, in your writing. Does that voice get you to what I call the zone, where you're just, you're just going and your thoughts are flowing, you're putting it down on paper, and you don't exactly know where you're going to go next, and all of a sudden something leads you in a direction when you're telling a story?
That, and I actually have finished the first book of the prequel series also, so that's going to be a little interesting.
Oh, I love prequels, by the way, because from what I can gather, what you do is you condense all of the things that you know about these characters for the future, and you kind of bring it back so people can understand why they are the way they are. That's a fascinating idea. Writing the prequel after, of course, everything else is already in stone and written in stone.
Right.
Wow.
And the prequel series is a lot more of exactly of, you know, how each character became what they are for the first series.
Now, I got to ask you a question. You took the initiative to self-publish the series?
Right.
Okay. I mean, was that kind of scary for people out there who, you know, are thinking about doing self-publishing? I mean, was it a hard decision to make? I mean, were you nervous about it? I mean, how's the book doing at this point? Is it starting to take hold now? You getting orders and all that stuff?
I am getting orders. The first book, I went through a company. The publisher is actually a self-published branch of Simon & Schuster. So for the first book, I had instruction on how things needed to be and the process, and learned how to do everything. If I did not have that, I don't think I would have proceeded to do.
Okay, you're breaking up a little bit there. Were you able to hear there, Michael?
I heard most of that for sure. But I do have another question to follow up on, because I always like to ask authors like Liz how they come up with the names of their characters, and whether these are kind of names that have you've run across, you know, in your entire career, you know, in law enforcement or whatever. But you know, the main character's name, right? Lindsay Gold. Is that something that means something to you personally?
It does, and I'm not sure. I actually am not sure anyone in my family has caught on to the name yet. Lindsay was my Well, Lindsay was my grandfather's name, and Goldie